Hello students, the UPSC Civil Services Mains Examination 2026 is underway, and in today's session we are going to take up the geography section of GS paper 1 for a detailed discussion. Our focus today will not be limited to merely discussing the answers, but we will also examine the model approach to each question. We will also try to understand the key concepts and geographical themes that are involved in the question. And we will also analyze what the UPSC was actually testing through these questions. This discussion will therefore be useful not only for those who have appeared for UPSC Mains 2026, but also for aspirants preparing for UPSC Mains 2027 and beyond. The objective is to understand the broader themes, conceptual linkages, and writing approaches that can be applied to similar questions in the future. This year, geography featured 8 questions in total. 4 questions were carrying 10 marks each, and the remaining 4 questions were carrying 15 marks each, and that makes it 40 marks from 10 marker question and 60 marks from the 15 marker question for a total of 100 marks. And we will take up these questions one by one, discuss their model answers, identify the core themes behind them, and we will also look at the maps, diagrams, examples, and other critical and analytical dimensions that can strengthen an answer in the examination. And once we complete the discussion of all the 8 questions today, we will come back to the paper as a whole and conduct a comprehensive pattern analysis of the geography section, looking at the nature of questions, recurring themes, conceptual orientation, difficulty level, and what this year's paper tell us about the evolving trend of UPSC geography. So with this approach, let us begin our detailed discussion of UPSC Mains 2026 GS paper 1 geography. So students, let's start with the very first question that was asked in the paper. Like I told you that there were total 8 questions that is displayed here on the screen. So the first 4 questions are 10 markers and the remaining 4 questions are 15 markers. So here the first question was, what is Fujiwara effect? Explain its impact on the movement and intensity of tropical cyclones. The second question was, Tundra regions are ecologically fragile but economically important. Examine this statement critically. The third question was, discuss the role of Aeolian process in desertification and land degradation. The fourth question was, water resources are both an asset and a source of conflict in South Asia, and examine the statement giving examples. The remaining 4 questions, 15 marker question, where you have to write the answer in 250 words. That is question number 15 in your paper. That is, compare the Lu, Chinook and Fohn veins with respect to their reasons of prevalence, their nature and climatic impacts. The next question, 15 question, was analyze the role of satellite based technologies in achieving climate smart agriculture and food security in India. The 16th question was, the center of global trade is gradually shifting from the Atlantic region to the Indo-Pacific region. Examine this statement. And the 17th question was, analyze the major drivers of human-induced land use changes in India and their geographical consequences. So these are total 8 questions and we are going to discuss all these 8 questions. So first we are going to start our discussion with the 10 marker question. That is, in your paper GS paper 1, these questions are numbered as question number 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we are going to start our discussion with question number 4. That is the very first question of geography in your GS paper 1. So what does this question says? The question is asking, what is Fujiwara effect? Explain. It means that this is the first part of the question, that what is Fujiwara effect. This is part 1 of the question, and part 2 of the question is explain its impact on explain its impact on the movement and intensity of tropical cyclones. It means that the second part has 2 subparts. So here in subpart 1 and subpart 2, so in subpart 1 you will have to discuss the impact of Fujiwara effect on the movement of tropical cyclones. So this is one part, that we have to explain the impact of Fujiwara effect on the movement of tropical cyclones. This is the subpart 1. And the second subpart is we have to discuss the impact of Fujiwara effect. We have to discuss the impact of Fujiwara effect on the intensity of tropical cyclones. It means that we have to explain Fujiwara effect with special reference to its impact on the movement of tropical cyclones and intensity of tropical cyclones. And since we have to explain, first we have to define this phenomena, that what is Fujiwara effect, and then what we will do, we have to explain the mechanism, because when we will explain the mechanism, then it will be possible to discuss the impact on tropical cyclones, on the movement and on the intensity. So here the core theme is Fujiwara effect. And when we talk about Fujiwara effect, so generally it is an interaction between two nearby tropical cyclonic vortices. So Fujiwara effect explains this interaction. So this is the core theme of the topic. Now let's start the discussion. But before this, we should know the concepts, that what is Fujiwara effect. The conceptual foundation is very much important. So we all know that Fujiwara effect describes the interaction of two nearby tropical cyclones vortices. Okay, so this is the main part of the concept, that the Fujiwara effect explains the interaction. It explains the interaction of two nearby tropical cyclone vortices. This is the main point. It means that when two tropical cyclones, the two systems, they can rotate around a common center or a barycenter. It means that rather than continuing independently, these two tropical cyclones, when they come and interact with each other, so they can rotate around a common center. This common center is known as barycenter. And this phenomena, that these two tropical cyclones, when they come in contact with each other, they rotate around a common center. So this phenomena was studied by a Japanese meteorologist, and the name of that Japanese meteorologist was Sakuei Fujiwara, and that is why it is called Fujiwara effect on tropical cyclones. So basically, what does it defines? It defines interaction between two binary cyclones orbiting cyclonically around their geometric center, that is barycenter. So when two cyclonic circulations approaches sufficiently close to each other, cyclone A and cyclone B, when they come to each other, their circulation fields, when they interact with each other, it produces a mutual rotational motion. And this mutual rotational motion of these two cyclones, it means that the behavior of these two cyclones depends on various factors. For example, the behavior of these two cyclones which are in interaction with each other depends on the relative distance between these two cyclones. The behavior also depends on the relative intensity of both these two cyclones. The behavior of these cyclones also depend on the size of vortices. The behavior of these two cyclones also depend on the vertical wind shear as well as oceanic and atmospheric conditions. So this is what, this is the definition of Fujiwara effect. This is a very simple definition. So here the definition has been written that when we talk about Fujiwara effect, so the Fujiwara effect is the interaction between the tropical cyclones. In mains exam, we should try to write the answers in the most simple languages. So that is the best way to fetch good marks. So here I have written that the Fujiwara effect is the interaction between two tropical cyclones or vortices that are close enough to influence each other's movement, and this is what studied by Fujiwara. And here the approach has been explained. This is cyclone A, this is cyclone B, and two cyclones move towards each other under the influence of a steering flow, right? This is the point. And when these two cyclones A and B, when they come at a certain distance, they feel each other's circulation and tend to move around a common center, and the common center is barycenter. They revolve around the common center in a counterclockwise direction. This has been written now in northern hemisphere while maintaining their identity. And what is the outcome or impact? This has been written here. So that we have to discuss that what is the outcome or impact. So the question is basically asking the Fujiwara effect and its impact on movement, okay, as well as its impact on movement as well as intensity of the tropical cyclone. So basically we have to discuss two concepts. So first we will discuss the impact on movement, because that is the subpart 1 of this part 2, subpart 1, impact on movement. So first we will discuss the impact on movement or effect on movement. Okay, so the most visible consequence is modification of track of these cyclones, and its effects can be seen in orbiting. For example, the two cyclones, when they come in contact with each other, they may rotate around a common center. So this is what impact on movement, that the two cyclones, when they come in contact with each other, they may rotate around a common center. The second point could be looping. It means that one system, one tropical cyclone or both the tropical cyclones may exhibit unusual looping tracks. Plus we can also see the track deflection. The original direction of movement may change abruptly, and the most important, the interaction can alter the speed of these two systems. And the very most important point here is that in these two cyclones, one cyclone could be a stronger cyclone, the other cyclone could be a weaker cyclone. So here the most important point is that the stronger cyclone may dominate the interaction, and eventually the stronger cyclone will absorb the weaker system. That is the most important point. And Indian Meteorological Department has research also. The IMD, International Meteorological Department, has researches also on interacting storms over Indian seas as documental changes in cyclone tracks associated with binary vortex interaction. And the second subpart here is impact on intensity. And what is the impact on intensity? Here we have discussed the effect on movement when they come in contact with each other. So the one possible outcome could be escape or deflection, that both these two cyclones can move away in two different directions. The second could be merger or capture. It means that when these two cyclones come in contact with each other, this might be possible that there is one stronger cyclone and one larger cyclone. So one cyclone is absorbed by the other. This is the second impact. And the third is complete merger. It means that both the cyclones combine to form a larger system. So there could be three possibilities here. First, deflection. It means that both could move away from each other. The second could be merger or capture. One cyclone is absorbed by the other cyclone. And the third could be complete merger. It means that both these two cyclones could combine to form a larger system. And I have already discussed that it depends on relative intensity, size, distance, and moving speed, and the other factors. Effect on movement, we have already discussed that it causes deviation from original path, it may cause looping motion, it makes forecasting difficult. This is the point here, effect on movement, that it makes the forecasting difficult. That is also a part of our critical analysis that we will discuss. So what is the impact of Fujiwara effect on intensity of cyclones? Okay, so the intensity response is not always uniform. It means that there could be possibilities. First, intensification and weakening, both could be possible. And when we say that on intensification, it means that the interaction of cyclones can modify convergence, it can modify convection, and under favorable conditions it contributes to strengthening of cyclones. So this is one part. But second part is weakening. It means that when two tropical cyclones come in contact with each other, there will be competition for moisture, there will be competition for energy, and as a result of this, disruption of the inner circulation can weaken one system or both the systems. So there are two possibilities. The first is intensification. It means that it can also contribute to strengthening, and the second point is weakening. It means that it could also result in weakening one system or other system. Merger or absorption, I have already discussed that this might be possible, that the stronger cyclone can absorb a weaker system, and in this way it can produce a single dominant vortex. And temporary weakening during merger is also an important point. Therefore, when we say that Fujiwara effect always intensifies cyclones, so this is incorrect. Fujiwara effect weakens the cyclones also. So this is the most important point. So this is the question. Now, when we look at this question, the Fujiwara effect and its impact on the movement and intensity of tropical cyclones, you will find that previously there was a pattern in UPSC that UPSC used to ask question from tropical cyclones. The questions were direct. Sometimes you will find that the questions on tropical cyclones included geographical distribution of tropical cyclones. The question on tropical cyclones included cyclone naming. This theme, cyclone related phenomena, was asked. Cyclone related warnings have been asked. But this time what we see, that UPSC has moved from those basic questions to process and mechanism based question. So here, instead of asking simply that what is a cyclone, UPSC has asked Fujiwara effect, and we have to explain this mechanism with reference to the impact on two particular things, movement and intensity. So obviously this theme is a new theme that has been asked by UPSC, and we also see that many a times what we see that the researches has been conducted, and over Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea, IMD does researches, and as a result of these researches, such themes are also in current affairs, not frequently, but they are in current affairs, and for this reason also UPSC has asked this question. Now, the examples of such interaction of cyclones and the Fujiwara effect on the impact on movement and intensity could easily be seen in some prevalent regions like Bay of Bengal, like Arabian Sea, like North Indian Ocean. So this is the most important point. Now, we have discussed the entire concept, but if you have to write the answer, so the most important challenge is to write the answer in 150 word. So simply you can write the answers like this. If it is possible to draw some sketches, you can use some sketches, and using simple sentences you can complete your answer. So for a 150 word answer, you can write this answer, or you can also write answer in IBC format, introduction, body and conclusion format. So when you are writing in IBC format, in introduction you can write that the Fujiwara effect refers to the interaction of two tropical cyclones in which they rotate around a common center. It means that rather than moving independently, they rotate around a common center. So you can write only this, they rotate around a common center. It was studied by a Japanese meteorologist, Sekawei Fujiwara. So that's why Fujiwara impact. Now on main body, you will divide your answer in three parts. In one part, you will write impact on movement of cyclones. In the second part, you will write impact on the intensity of cyclones. And in third part, you will write some critical assessment. So when you will write impact on movement, you can write points like the cyclones may orbit around a common center. You can write that the original tracks of cyclones could be deflected. The original tracks of cyclones could be accelerated. Speed बढ़ भी सकती है. The original tracks of cyclone could also be subject to deceleration. Speed कम भी हो सकती है. Then you can also write that the stronger cyclone may dominate and it could draw the weaker system towards it. It means it could result in the absorption of cyclone, weaker cyclone, and such kind of interaction increases uncertainty. This is the critical analysis point, that this does what? This increases uncertainty in cyclone track forecasting. For example, today we do what? Weather forecasting, cyclone track forecasting. So due to this Fujiwara effect and interaction between two cyclones, sometimes it becomes uncertain or difficult to do a cyclone track forecasting, especially when we talk about the Indian seas. And on intensity, you can write that interaction of these two cyclones could result in convergence, convection, moisture. One system may intensify while the other system could weaken due to the competition for available energy that I have already discussed. You can also write about merger or absorption. Lastly, you could conclude that the Fujiwara effect illustrates the complex non-linear behavior of tropical cyclones and making accurate prediction of their movement and intensity especially challenging, making forecasting challenging. So either you can write this model or you can write the answer like I have discussed, IBC model. Again, I am repeating the points that what is Fujiwara effect. So the Fujiwara effect is the interaction between the tropical cyclones that are close enough to influence each other movement. Now what is the approach? You can draw this sketch and write that two cyclones, when they move towards each other under the influence of steering flow. Capture, you can write these points that when they come within a certain distance, they feel each other's circulation and they tend to move around a common center, that is also known as barycenter. The third point you can write here is mutual orbit, that they could revolve around the common center, barycenter, and they revolve in anti-clockwise direction while maintaining their identity, right? What could be the outcomes? There could be three possible outcomes. First, escape or deflection. It means that they could move away from each other. Third, merger or capture. It means that one cyclone is absorbed by the other. And the third is complete merger. It means both combine to form a larger system. Variations in outcome, here points have been written. Effect on movement I have already explained. Effect on intensity is what? When as a result of Fujiwara effect, what we see, when two cyclones come in contact with each other, it can enhance intensity. Why? Due to the increased flow and greater moisture convergence. Or the second result could be, it can also weaken due to disruption of a structure and vertical wind shear. So this is what Fujiwara effect and its impact on movement and intensity of cyclones. So these are the sketches here, that two cyclones, when they come in contact with each other, they orbit around a common center that I have already discussed. These are the images through which you could see that how when two cyclones come in contact with each other, what is the result, how they interact. So these are different images, but we have to basically write the answer. We have nothing to do with the images. Now we are coming to the second question, that is question number 5. Again, this is a 10 marker question, and this question says that this question is about tundra regions. And what this question is asking, this question is saying that tundra regions, it means that this is very important, that we should understand what are the tundra regions. That tundra regions are ecologically fragile, very important keyword, but at the same time they are economically important also. Examine this statement critically. So here we have to examine this statement critically. So basically in this question, you have to explain about tundra paradox. And this is not only static, but you will find that this theme is frequently in current due to several reasons, that when I will discuss the complete theme, you will come to understand that why it is in news. So here the question is talking, here the directive keyword is we have to examine, and we have to examine it critically. It means that we have to address all the dimensions of this statement. It means we have to address this paradox. And what is the paradox? That tundra regions are ecologically fragile and at the same time they are economically important. So we have to explain this. And in our GS classes, in geography classes, all of you have must read about tundra regions. You are familiar with the concept of permafrost. You are familiar with the concept that tundra regions have low biodiversity. You are familiar with the concept of carbon sink. You are familiar with the concept of Arctic resources. You are familiar with that in Arctic region, hydrocarbons, minerals, fisheries, all this, which kind of livelihood the people follows, what is ecological vulnerability, you all are familiar with all these issues. So this question broadly requires the understanding of three core elements. First, what is tundra ecosystem? This understanding is very important, that we must know about tundra region and its ecosystem. Tundra region in its ecosystem, this is the basic concept that we all should understand. Now the second most important point is that we should definitely understand that why are tundra regions ecologically fragile, and in our answer we have to explain that why are tundra regions ecologically fragile. Plus at the same time in our answer we also have to explain that why are tundra regions economically important. And lastly, while doing a critical assessment, in our answer we will also add one more perspective, and that is why does economic exploitation in this region creates a tension with ecological sustainability. That is the most important point. It means that unless we will not explain the economic importance of tundra and how it is threatened by ecological degradation and climate change, our answer will be incomplete. So that is the most important point. We all know that tundra region is a high ecological sensitive region. We all know that the regenerative capacity of the resources of tundra region is very slow, and we all know that tundra region have significant strategic resources, and that is what makes it economically valuable. So we need to understand all this. Okay, so now first we will do a detailed discussion of the theme, then I will discuss the model answer, and then I will also discuss some images so that you could better way you could write answers in different formats, and that is the need of the time. So when we are talking about tundra region, so one thing that will strike in your mind, that we are talking about a cold region. We are talking about a treeless biome that is characterized by very low temperatures, short growing season, low precipitation, shallow active soil layer in the tundra regions. We are familiar with the permafrost in the tundra regions. The vegetation we talk about, when we talk about the vegetation in the tundra regions, this is mosses, lichens, grasses and dwarf shrubs. So all these occur primarily in Arctic, besides alpine tundra at high elevations. But why they are ecologically fragile? This is the most important part. So in first part we can write like this, but in main body we will answer that why tundra region, all these resources are ecologically fragile. So when we are explaining why they are ecologically fragile, so one point is very important, and that is the slow regenerative capacity. It means that there are low temperatures, there are short growing seasons, and it means that vegetation and soils will recover slowly. If they are disturbed, they will recover slowly. So this is what the challenge of slow regeneration. And we also know about permafrost vulnerability. We have read about permafrost thawing. Thawing will do what? Thawing will destabilize soil. Thawing alters drainage system, and thawing also damages infrastructure. So in Arctic tundra ecosystems, okay, this impact is very clearly visible. And there is a climate sensitivity when we talk about tundra region, because we all know the challenge of Arctic warming. We all know the challenge of vegetation shifts and fire risk that can alter tundra ecosystem, that can alter or that can change the carbon feedback mechanism. The food web system in the tundra region is also very simple. Low species diversity is there, and It makes the ecological disturbances potentially more consequential since the species have a very low species diversity. This is one part. But the second part is why tundra region is economically important. Due to energy resources, we all know that Arctic region contains significant oil and natural gas resources, which makes them strategically important. When we talk about mineral resources, we can talk about nickel, copper, we can talk about rare earth elements, we can talk about other minerals that occur across parts of Arctic. We can also talk about fisheries. Arctic marine ecosystem support commercially and subsistence important fisheries. Livelihood is indigenous livelihood. There is fishing, hunting, and reindeer caribou herding. It remain economically and culturally important in this region. And declining sea ice is opening opportunities today for shipping. It is opening opportunities for resource exploration and tourism, although it is also creating significant environmental and navigational risks. So what is the paradox here? The paradox here is increasing economic accessibility in this region. It can create at the same time the challenge of ecological vulnerability. And this is what tundra paradox. I am again repeating, what is tundra paradox? So increasing economic accessibility in this region, it can result simultaneously. It can increase ecological vulnerability, and this is what? This is tundra paradox. Okay, there is global warming, sea ice decline. As a result, what will happen? Accessibility will increase. As a result, what will happen? Resource extraction will increase. As a result, what will happen? Infrastructure and ecological pressure will increase. At the same time, we see another picture, and that is what? Permafrost thaw. As a result of that, infrastructure instability. As a result of that, what we see? Higher extraction and transportation costs. So these two challenges are simultaneous. So this is what you have to write in your answer. This is complete theme. Now, in model answer, what you will write? So there are two models. One model is that you can write answer of this question in IBC format. That is introduction, body and conclusion format. So in introduction, you will write about tundra. That tundra is characterized by permafrost, by short growing season. It is characterized by sparse vegetation. It is characterized by highly sensitive environmental disturbance, yet its resources make it increasingly economically significant. Now, in main body, you will talk about ecological fragility and economic importance. While talking about ecological fragility, you will write some bullet form points like ecological fragility. You will write point 1, low temperatures and short growing seasons give tundra poor regenerative capacity. You can write point 2, permafrost thaw. This permafrost thaw can be asked in prelims also, so this is important, always remember. So permafrost thaw alters hydrology, vegetation and ground stability. Point 3, you can write that warming and wildfire threatens biodiversity and release stored carbon. Then you can talk about economic importance in part 2, that Arctic tundra supports oil, gas and mineral extraction, including critical minerals. Fisheries, reindeer, caribou herding and tourism sustain livelihoods. Declining sea ice is creating opportunities for shipping and resource accessibility. And you can also write critical dimension, that is tundra paradox. And what is tundra paradox? Greater accessibility can intensify extraction of resources. Greater accessibility can increase infrastructure pressure, while permafrost thaw threatens roads, pipelines and settlements. And you can lastly conclude that tundra's economic value is conditional upon ecological resilience, sustainable extraction, indigenous participation and climate resilient infrastructure are essential. So this is the point, but it is very important when we are writing answers. So word limit is very challenge in this 150 word answer. So you can write the points in, you can write the keywords of the ideas in your answer, and you can simply write the answer in 150 word. For example, here what are the tundra regions has been indicated on the map. We are talking about this tundra region around Arctic Circle. This is what Tundra region. This is what? Tundra region. When we are talking about Tundra region, so this is basically Tundra region, right? We are talking about ecological fragility. Why? Because this is the active layer of soil. This is permafrost. This permafrost thaw, obviously you have studied in your geography classes, right? And the vegetation cover here is mosses, lichens. There is very low biodiversity here. Dwarf shrubs are there. Tundra, what we see, ecological fragility means what? Very cold climate, short growing season, that is 50 to 60 days. Thin active soil layer, poor nutrients, low productivity, slow decomposition, slow regeneration, highly sensitive to disturbance. This is the point. So you have explained ecological fragility. When we talk about tundra ecosystem, this ecosystem is also very simple and sensitive. In vegetation, we see lichens, mosses, sedges, dwarf shrubs. And here these are the animals like snowy owl, caribou, lemmings, Arctic fox and wolf. When climate change, permafrost thaw, we will write the point here, permafrost thaw, right? This is permafrost, here is intact, it is thawing. Vegetation change, loss of permafrost, land subsidence and erosion that I have already discussed, habitat loss, release of stored carbon and very slow recovery. Okay, this is the increasing vulnerability in this region. If there is more global warming, there will be more permafrost thaw, and as a result what will happen? There will be more carbon release, right? This is the challenge here. What is economic importance here? So oil and gas, large reserves in Arctic shelves, okay, rich cold water fisheries, these are the tundra resources, tourism and research, unique landscapes, wildlife, scientific research, minerals, nickel, copper, iron, rare earth, diamonds, coals, indigenous livelihoods I have already discussed, reindeer herding, hunting, fishing and traditional knowledge, then strategic and transport, northern sea route, shipping potential, geopolitical importance. Critical assessment points, opportunities and threats. We will talk about both these points while explaining the paradox. So what are the opportunities? It provides opportunities for, you will write keywords in your answers only, like energy security, economic development, minerals for industry, employment and infrastructure. In threats, you will write environmental degradation, permafrost thaw and carbon release, loss of biodiversity, impact on indigenous communities. So this you will write. And in conclusion, you can write that tundra regions are ecologically fragile due to harsh climate, permafrost, low productivity and slow recovery, yet they are economically important for their resources, livelihoods and strategic value. And the challenge is not the development, but the challenge is we have to ensure the development with conservation for a sustainable future. So when we are writing answer, basically 10 marker question, so basically we have to follow this model, that we will just write a format of the answer, introduction, body and conclusion, and in main body we will explain different dimensions, but while explaining different dimensions we will prevent ourselves from writing the complete sentences. Instead we will give the keywords or the hints so that the examiner could understand and we could write the answers in prescribed words and given time limit. Okay, now we are coming to the next question, and this is the next question, question number 6, and this question says that discuss the role of Aeolian processes in desertification and land degradation. It means that the main, you can say that key theme that has been discussed in this topic is Aeolian processes. So we have to discuss Aeolian process, and while discussing Aeolian process we have to discuss that how this Aeolian process play a role in desertification and land degradation. And we have to discuss simply means an explanatory treatment of the question. Discuss means writing a balanced answer, right? This we have to do. So basically in our classes we have studied about wind erosion, we have studied about soil degradation. Okay, while studying wind erosion and soil degradation, you might have studied about deflation, aberration, these words you must have heard, saltation, suspension, wind erosion, topsoil, sand encroachment, vegetation loss, desertification, land degradation, dune stabilization, all these words you are familiar. And here the question is doing what? The question is asking that how does wind act as a geomorphic agent to degrade land and facilitate desertification. Therefore, now we should understand that what are the major Aeolian processes, different keywords there. While discussing about these Aeolian processes, we should know the impact on soil and vegetation, the role in desertification. We must know some examples also, and in this way we can explain the need of the question. Now, here the most important keyword is Aeolian processes. So what are the Aeolian processes? So Aeolian processes are geomorphic processes. Aeolian processes are what? They are the geomorphic processes, and they involve what? Erosion by wind, transportation by wind, and deposition, erosion, transportation and deposition of earth materials by wind. This is what? Aeolian process. So again I am repeating, what is Aeolian process? Aeolian processes are geomorphic processes which involves the erosion, transportation and deposition of earth materials by wind. So this is what? Geomorphic process. And in this process we see what? We see in these processes you will find different keywords. For example, in this process you will find a keyword deflation. And what does this word deflation means? Deflation means removal of loose fine particles by wind. In the same way you will find another word like abrasion. And abrasion or corrosion means what? It means that sand laden winds wear down exposed surfaces. Sand laden winds wear down exposed surfaces. And transportation occurs through, again there are keywords like transportation occurs through suspension, transformation occurs through saltation, transformation occurs through surface creeps. So the transportation occurs through suspension, saltation and surface creeps. What is suspension? Suspension here means fine dust. Saltation here means bouncing sand grains. Surface creep means rolling of large particles. So deposition occurs when the wind velocity decline. What will happen? It will create sand, seed sand, sand dunes. So this is what Aeolian process. These are major processes: deflation, abrasion, suspension, saltation, surface creep. And here what we see, that wind is an important factor. And that is why while explaining we said that Aeolian processes are geomorphic processes and which involves erosion, transportation and deposition of earth materials by wind. So wind is the most important agent. Now the question is that how do these Aeolian processes create desertification? So there are two dimensions. How does these Aeolian processes create desertification? How they create land degradation? So how they create desertification? How they create land degradation? So while explaining land degradation, we can say that due to this Aeolian process, what will happen? Loss of fertile topsoil will take place. What will happen? The wind will remove the fine nutrient rich particles and organic matter. So what will happen? Wind erosion, as a result topsoil loss, as a result declining soil fertility, as a result lower productivity of the soil. And the second point could be vegetative degradation, when there will be removal of soil and moisture. So ultimately it will result in what? Reducing vegetation cover. And when the vegetation cover will be reduced, what will happen? It will be exposed to more soil to wind. And in this way we see that this is a kind of loop where we see vegetation loss, where we see exposed soil, where we see stronger wind erosion, where we see further vegetation loss. In the same way we can see sand encroachment. It means that once by this wind the transported sand can ultimately bury or deposit in croplands, it can bury into grazing lands, it can bury on to roads, it can bury in settlements. And in this way this will be what? This will result in particularly significant desert margins, and then the role of desertification will come. That when persistent wind erosion will take place, when this Aeolian process, okay, wind erosion is combined with drought, when wind erosion is combined with overgrazing, when wind erosion is combined with deforestation, when wind erosion is combined with inappropriate land use, ultimately it can accelerate degradation in arid, semi-arid and dry subhumid areas. So this is what? Degradation. Now we can give example, that is example of Thar Desert. That is an excellent example because sand dunes and sandy landforms are particularly vulnerable to wind erosion. Okay, so there is a policy, that is India's next national action program on desertification, which notes that high wind velocities in different parts of the Thar can cause topsoil loss and terrain deformation. This is an important point. Now, we have to write the answer of this question in 150 word. So ultimately, while writing the answer of this question in 150 word, we will follow a model, that is IBC model. So in introduction, we will explain what is Aeolian process. For example, we can explain Aeolian process as Aeolian processes involve the erosion, transportation and deposition of sediments by wind. In arid and semi-arid regions, they can become important agents of land degradation. Then in main body, you will talk about desertification and land degradation. That you will say that deflation removes the fine fertile topsoil, reducing soil moisture and productivity. Abrasion damages exposed surfaces and vegetation. Saltation and suspension transport sand and dust, while deposition causes sand sheet and dune encroachment over croplands and infrastructure. So the vegetation loss due to drought or overgrazing exposes soil and it creates a feedback, that is vegetation loss. Vegetation loss results in wind erosion, further land degradation. Example is India's Thar Desert, where strong winds mobilize sand and contribute to topsoil loss and terrain deformation. However, Aeolian processes alone do not cause desertification. Climate stress and unsustainable land use amplify the effect of Aeolian processes. Lastly, we will conclude that controlling wind erosion through shelter belts, through dune stabilization, through agroforestry, through sustainable grazing is essential in achieving land degradation neutrality. This is the point. Now, this is one model. Now you can also write the answer like this. Here are some images so that you could understand. For example, when we talk about Aeolian process, it simply means what? Deflation, suspension, saltation, surface creep. So deflation means what? Wind removes loose fine particles from the surface. Then the second stage is transportation. In transportation, we see what? Suspension, saltation, surface creep. And what does it mean? It means that very fine particles, suspension means very fine particles like clay and silt lifted high and carried too far. Saltation means sand-sized particles bounce along the surface in short hops. Surface creep means what? Larger particles roll or drag along the surface. Then after deflation, after transportation, we will talk about deposition. That wind energy decreases, particles are deposited, forming dunes, ripples and sand sheets. So this is what Aeolian process. So you must remember these keywords when we talk about Aeolian processes. Okay. So deflation, suspension, saltation, surface creeps and deposition. Now, major land forms as a result of these Aeolian processes are dunes, like sand sheets, like ripple marks. Okay. Now, what is the impact on land? How Aeolian processes cause degradation? So, vegetation cover does what? Vegetation cover protects soil from wind. But as a result of this Aeolian process, what will happen? Okay, vegetation loss due to overgrazing, deforestation, drought. And when vegetation loss, what will happen? Exposed loose soil. Soil becomes dry, loose and erodible. So here the role of wind erosion comes, deflation comes. Okay, so the deflation, the role of Aeolian process starts from here. It means that if there is vegetation cover, this vegetation cover will protect soil from wind. But once there is vegetation loss, Due to several factors like overgrazing, deforestation and drought, the soil is loosely exposed loose, the soil becomes dry and then wind erosion starts, deflation starts, right? This process starts. Removal of fine particles and topsoil. Once topsoil loss is done, loss of fertility of soil, nutrients and moisture, ultimately it will be deposited. Result is sand encroachment, dunes advance over fields and settlements. Result is what? Land degradation and desertification. And as a result what we see? Reduced productivity, loss of livelihoods. So what are the consequences? Consequences is loss of fertile topsoil and soil organic matter, right? Decline in soil moisture, decline in water holding capacity of the soil, burial of crops, pastures, canals, roads, settlements, right? Increased runoff and reduced infiltration, decrease in agricultural productivity and biodiversity expansion, barren and desert margins. So these are the key consequences. So write the keywords only in your answer. Okay. What are the most prone areas here? So the best example, excellent example is Thar Desert, covering the areas of Rajasthan, Gujarat and Haryana. This is also prone area. Run of Kutch, Gujarat, Leh Ladakh, rain shadow area, and Deccan rain shadow area of Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh is also, you can say, the areas which are prone to these Aeolian processes. What are the control measures? Suggestions way forward. So you can write points like afforestation and shelter belts, controlled grazing, stabilization of dunes, soil and moisture conservation, proper land use planning, and community participation and sustainable livelihood. So this is the answer. You can write the answers like this. Here the process has been explained: deflation, suspension, saltation, surface creep, and lastly deposition, that I have already explained. The result is land degradation, the dune encroachment, I've already explained, right? Here we are talking about Thar Desert, right? These are the sandy areas prone to Aeolian processes, right? Wind processes. Here again Aeolian process, you will find these different keywords like deflation, transport, deposition, all this has been written. The processes which are linked to Aeolian action, to land degradation, are vegetation loss, exposed soil, wind erosion, topsoil loss, sand encroachment, land degradation. So I hope that now you are familiar with the concept, you have understood the theme, and you can write the answers in 150 words easily. Now we are coming to question number 7. This question number 7 is also a 10 marker question. And what is the question? The question says that water resources. This question is about water resources. So water resources are both an asset and at the same time they are a source of conflict. It means that again here we see a paradox. And what is the paradox? On one side what we see that water resources are like asset. On other side it is like source of conflict, especially in South Asia. So this question is related not only with respect to India but with respect to South Asia, and we have to examine the statement giving examples. So in this question there is need to examine. Examining again means what? Giving a balanced evaluation. And here also you see that there are two pictures, especially we are talking in context of South Asia, so we will have to give South Asian examples. And on one side it is saying that the water is an asset, and at the same time it is also saying that this water is a reason or a resource that is a source of conflict. So we will have to explain that why this is the source of conflict. So the first important theme here is that here we are talking about water resource, but the water resource that we are discussing here is transboundary water resource. We are talking about when we are saying asset, it means that we have to explain the development, cooperation, as well as the conflicts here in this question. So all of us have studied about transboundary rivers in our classes. Water security topic we have read, river basin, upstream, downstream. We are familiar with these keywords. All of you are familiar with the keywords like river water treaties, water sharing, hydropower projects, irrigation, water diplomacy in foreign policy, right? Ecological flow. So you will have to use all these dimensions while explaining the answer of this question. So when we say water as an asset, So what is the information that strikes your mind when you say water as an asset? So when we say water as an asset, so definitely we will talk about agriculture, we will talk about hydropower, we will talk about domestic supply, we will talk about fisheries, we will talk about navigation, and we will talk about ecosystems. But when we say water as a source of conflict, it means that we are talking about competing demands. We are talking about the upstream interests and downstream interests. We are talking about dams. We are talking about seasonal variability. We are talking about pollution. We are talking about climate change. We are talking about geopolitical tensions. So here, always remember that the water as a resource itself is not inherently conflictual. Water itself is not inherently conflictual. But the transboundary nature, it means that when we talk about rivers, so they have a transboundary nature, unequal spatial distribution, and as a result there are many countries, so there will be competing development priorities, and that creates tensions. And we have to explain this understanding with respect to South Asia's river system, that we have to explain, right? So now I hope that you now understand why water is an asset. So we will talk with respect to South Asia, and we know that when we talk about South Asia, so South Asia is dominated by major transboundary river systems. When we talk about South India, right? South Asia. So when we talk about South Asia, so South Asia is dominated by major transboundary river systems. For example, we talk about rivers Indus, Ganga, right? Brahmaputra, Meghna. So this is what South Asian river systems. And these river systems, all these river systems, like we talked about Indus, we talked about Ganga river system, we talked about Brahmaputra, we talked about Meghna. So these river systems support a densely populated region. And when we talk about river systems, so they support what? Agriculture. It means that there is monsoon, there are these river systems, and they sustain irrigation, extensive irrigation, and food production. For example, when we talk with respect to this Indus Basin, it means that this Indus Basin is particularly important for agriculture, not only in India but in Pakistan also. The Ganga Brahmaputra system, it does what? It supports agriculture across northern and eastern India and Bangladesh. We also talk about hydropower. Mountainous countries such as Nepal and Bhutan, they do what? Nepal and Bhutan possesses enormous hydropower potential. Why? Because of steep gradients, because of perennial Himalayan rivers, and this creates opportunities for electricity generation. This creates opportunity for regional energy trade. This creates opportunity for industrialization. This creates opportunity for export learnings. So the river systems also support agriculture, but they support the other activities like fisheries. They support activities like livestock. They support activities like inland navigation. They support urban water supply. And there are many ecological services that they provide. For example, wetlands, floodplains and deltas. What is the importance of wetlands, floodplains and deltas? Again, we will relate this now with river system, wetland, floodplains and deltas. So they provide groundwater recharge, they provide biodiversity, they provide sediment replenishment, and they provide flood buffering. So these ecological services are also attached to these rivers. So it is very clear that water is an asset here. Water is an asset. There is no any doubt. When we talk about this water, we are talking about river systems, Indus system, Ganga system, we are talking about Brahmaputra, Meghna system. Okay. And this system shows that this water is what? Is an asset. But at the same time, what we see that this water, the same water, is also a source of conflict. Why it is a source of conflict? Due to upstream downstream tensions, right? Upstream downstream tensions. So I hope that all of you must understand upstream and downstream system. For example, when we talk with respect to Indus system, so the upstream country is China, okay, because Origin is near Lake Mansarovar, Tibet, China. Downstream countries are India and Pakistan. With respect to Ganga system, we see the upstream countries are India, Nepal, Tibet, China. Downstream countries are India, Bangladesh. With respect to Brahmaputra Meghna system, we see the upstream countries China and the downstream countries are India and Bangladesh. So this upstream downstream tension, it means that an upstream country can alter downstream water availability through dams, through reservoirs and through irrigation diversion, and this creates a classic upstream downstream geographical conflict. So you will see that various nations are involved here, right here, India, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, China. So you will see what there will be a conflict. For example, you must have read about different river water treaty system like Indus Water Treaty 1960, which provides a framework for sharing the Indus River system. So these disagreements have periodically emerged over Indian hydropower projects, particularly regarding the interpretation and implementation of treaty provisions. And it also demonstrates that shared water can simultaneously create institutionalized cooperation as well as recurring disputes. For example, India, Bangladesh and Ganga water river system. So the Ganga water sharing treaty of 1996 with respect to India and Bangladesh established a framework for sharing dry season flows at Farakka. Yet issues relating to lean season availability, upstream withdrawals, river morphology, salinity in Bangladesh continue to generate political sensitivity. When we talk about India, Nepal, so the Kosi, Gandak and Mahakali river system, they create opportunities for irrigation and hydropower, but also generate debates over benefit sharing, flood control, project implementation, downstream impacts, and therefore the issue is not simply water quantity, but it is also distribution of benefits as well as risks. When we talk about Brahmaputra river system, India, China, so the Brahmaputra originates in Tibet and flows through India and Bangladesh. So the Chinese infrastructure and hydropower development in the upper reaches create tensions downstream regarding the regulation of flow, sediment, flood management, ecological impacts, availability of hydrological information, and this gives the river a significant geopolitical dimension. Climate change is an emerging multiplier in this context because the climate change adds another layer to this problem or challenge. South Asian river basins face what? Glaciers, snow changes, erratic monsoons, floods, droughts, rising water demand, result greater uncertainty in water availability, result higher potential for interstate and intrastate tensions. So we can say that, however, avoiding the simplistic claim that climate change automatically causes water wars, it is better understood as a threat multiplier interacting with already existing political, economic and institutional tensions. So water wars, it means that how our approach shifted from water wars to water cooperation, okay, by Indus Water Treaty, by Ganga Water Sharing Treaty, by India-Bhutan hydropower cooperation, by India-Nepal water and hydropower agreements. So shared water can become a source of conflict when managed through zero-sum politics, but shared water can also be a source of regional integration when treated with a shared basin resource. This is the point. Now, we have to write the answer of this question in 150 words. So obviously, while writing answer in IBC model, we'll talk about introduction. Like in introduction, we can write South Asia's major rivers are transboundary assets, sustaining agriculture, energy, livelihood, ecosystems. However, their unequal spatial distribution makes water sharing a geopolitical challenge. In main body, you will write why an asset. In main body, you will write why it is a source of conflict. So there are two parts in main body. So while explaining it as an asset, you will write that the Indus Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna basin supports intensive agriculture and millions of livelihoods. Himalayan rivers provide major hydropower potential, particularly for Nepal and Bhutan. Rivers also support fisheries, navigation, groundwater recharge and ecological services. And in part B, we will explain why it is a source of conflict. So here we can give a special reference to India, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, India, China. So while writing about India, Pakistan, we can write about disagreements over projects. We can write about interpretation of Indus Water Treaty reflect upstream, downstream tensions. While explaining India-Bangladesh context, we can write lean season. Sharing of Ganga remains a sensitive issue despite the 1996 treaty. While writing India-China, we can write that Brahmaputra development raises concerns over downstream flows, sediment and hydrological information. And ultimately, lastly, we can write that the climate variability can intensify the competition for water. And lastly, we can conclude that water is both a developmental asset and geopolitical challenge. So basin level cooperation, data sharing and equitable benefit sharing can convert hydrological interdependence into regional cooperation. So in this way, you can write the answer of this question. But here, you can also write the answer of this question by using some particular keywords. For example, this is a question that water resources are both an asset and a source of conflict in Southeast Asia. Examine. So you will explain water as an asset. You will explain water as a source of conflict. We can give examples from South Asia. And lastly, we can do what? We can give some suggestions, and lastly, we can write a conclusion. So this is the point. In point-wise format, you will find that in this answer format, I have not written even a single complete sentence. Only in conclusion, I have written a complete sentence. Otherwise, you will find that only keywords are written. For example, while explaining water as an asset, the first point is sustains life and livelihoods. And you will do what? You will write simple points like drinking water, agriculture, fisheries and livestock. This is also an excellent way of writing answers in mains examination. Second point, I have written drives economic growth, not full sentence. Here I have written keywords like irrigation, hydropower, industry and trade. Third point I have written is flood control, disaster risk reduction. Again, keywords like reservoirs, embankments and early warning system. Fourth point I have written is navigation and connectivity. Again, written keywords like inland waterways, support, transport and regional integration. Fifth point I have written ecological services. Again, written keywords like wetlands, groundwater recharge, biodiversity conservation, right? And here major transboundary river system has been indicated. The Indus system, Ganga Brahmaputra system, Tista Mahakali. You can also draw a simple sketch, okay? Not exactly like this, but draw simple sketch, rough sketch, and you can indicate the river systems. Now, why water as a source of conflict? So 4 points. First, sharing of transboundary rivers, upstream developments, seasonal variability and extremes, water quality and pollution, climate change impacts. Now you can again write keywords here, like while writing sharing of transboundary rivers, you can write differences over allocation of waters, timing and quantity. Upstream developments, you can write dams, barrages, diversion effects and downstream flow and uses. Seasonal variability and extremes, you can write like glacial melt, monsoon variability, droughts and flood increase competition. Water quality and pollution, while explaining this, you can write keywords like industrial effluents, sewage and agrochemicals pollute shared water. Climate change impact, glacier retreat, erratic rainfall, sea level rise, intensify scarcity and risk. You can talk about Indus Water Treaty 1960, Western Rivers, Eastern Rivers, cooperation through treaty, Ganga Water India Bangladesh, dry season flows, barrages, Farakka, pollution, sedimentation cause tensions, Brahmaputra, China, India, Bangladesh, right? Concerns over hydropower projects, flow regulation and data sharing. Tista River, India, Bangladesh, no agreement on water sharing despite long negotiations. Then way forward, you can write points like cooperation over competition, data sharing, transparency and trust, equitable and reasonable utilization, integrated river basin management, and lastly dialogue institutions and regional cooperation, and we can write a simple conclusion. So this is also a method through which we can write answer of this question. Now we are coming to the second set of question. In the second set of questions, there are 4 questions. All these 4 questions are 15 marker question, and you have to write answer of these 4 questions in 250 words each. And here the concept is, here the question is very simple. The question is asking, compare the Lu, Chinook and Fawn winds with respect to their reasons of prevalence, their nature and climatic impacts. So this question is basically a comparison based question. And here it has been written that when you are comparing, so these 3 dimensions must be included during comparison. Reasons of prevalence, the nature and climatic impacts, this must be included, right? So this is the point here. Now, while writing answer of this question, I told you that this is a comparison based question. So here it is talking about three wind system: Lu, Chinook and Fawn winds. So Chinook and Fawn are the Fawn wind system, right? For example, this is what? Chinook, Rocky Mountains; Fawn, Alps, Europe; Chinook, Rocky Mountains, North America. This all you have studied in your basic GS classes. Plus there is one more wind system, and that is Lu winds. So it is also asking about Lu winds. So basically, when we will write the answer of this question, so there are three dimensions that we have to write while doing comparison, and three dimensions of comparison is reasons of prevalence, nature and mechanism, and climatic impacts, right? And Lu, Chinook and Fawn, we have to write about three wind systems. So we can write like this. Okay, you can also draw some sketches, rough sketches, like when you are drawing rough sketches of Lu. Okay, so you can explain this simple rough sketch, draw these arrows, and you can write Thar Desert, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Indo-Gangetic Plain region. Chinook winds, you can give a hint, like we are talking about Rockies. Fawn, we are talking about Alps. We are talking about this leeward side, right? We are talking about this leeward side. So this you will explain, okay? And these points you will write in your answer. So basically, when we talk about Lu, so Lu is a very hot, dry and often dusty summer wind. And Lu prevails mainly over northwestern and northern India and adjoining Pakistan. When we talk about Lu, so it prevails mainly over northwest, northern India, Pakistan, mainly over Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana and adjoining Indo-Gangetic plains. The Lu is strongest during May, June, before the southwest monsoon. Lu is also associated with intense heating of continental landmass. So this is very important, that when we are talking about Lu, we are talking about continental landmass, heating of continental landmass, right? But when we talk about Chinook, so Chinook means we are talking about a warm, dry wind descending the eastern slopes, lee slopes of the Rocky Mountains in North America. So this is what? Chinook winds. It means that air loses moisture on the windward side and becomes warm rapidly while descending, and this is why that Chinook is also called the snow eater, because of the rapid snow melt. And the third wind is Fawn. And when we talk about Fawn, it is a warm, dry, downslope wind on the northern side of the Alps in Europe. This is Fawn, okay? And it is similar to Chinook in its basic orographic and adiabatic mechanism. This can cause rapid temperature increase and snow melt. So basically, when you do a concept distinction, you will find that the Lu is related to intense continental heating. It is hot and dry, a strong surface wind. When we talk about Chinook and Fawn both, so that is what? Moist air rises over mountains, precipitation, it descends leeward slope and adiabatic warming. These things are the most important part, right? This is the point here, okay? So this is what you will have to explain while explaining the concept, right? Relevance of Lu, heat wave, vulnerability in northern India, right? So this you can write. So in this way, we have to explain the answer of this question, right? Chinook is global example, Fawn is global example, right? And what is the critical dimension analytical point here is that, so the most important point that you have to remember is this point you must include in your answer, that Lu is continental summer heating, whereas Chinook and Fawn mountain induced descent adiabatic warming system. Okay, so when you will include this, this will significantly improve your answer. So there are two models. First, this one. Basically, this is the best model here, because you can write a comparative analysis in a and you can fulfill the demand of the question. But when you want to write the introduction, you can simply write that Lu, Chinook and Fawn are warm, dry regional winds, but they differ in their geographical setting as well as genesis. Lu is primarily associated with intense continental heating, but the Chinook and Fawn are characterized downslope winds produced by orographic and adiabatic processes. And then you will do comparison, and this method of doing comparison is excellent. We can do like this. So again, I am reading this answer that Lu, reasons of prevalence I have written, Chinook, eastern leeward slopes of the Rocky Mountains in the North America, Fawn, northern slopes of the Alps in Europe, right? Nature and mechanism, when we'll explain the nature and mechanism of Lu, we can write extremely hot, dry and dusty wind developed due to intense pre-monsoon heating of the Thar Desert and adjoining areas. A low pressure over the heated land draws in hot continental air which flows from northwest to southeast. In Chinook, we can write that warm, dry downslope wind, moist air from Pacific rises on the windward slopes, cools adiabatically and causes rain and snow. On descending the lee slope, air comprises and warms adiabatically 1 degree C. But this much technically you don't need to write, but still you can write the basic points here. In fawn, you can write warm, dry downslope wind, the same point. Moist air from Mediterranean rises over the Alps, cools and gives a precipitation on windward side. Descending lee slope, okay, air warms adiabatically, right? The process is the same here. Okay, 1 degree C per 100 meter. Now climatic impacts of Lu, you can write sharp rise in temperature, often more than 45 degrees C, very low humidity, desiccating effect on human beings, plants and animals, causes heat waves, dust storms and moisture stress to crops. About Chinook, you can write climatic impacts like sudden rise in temperature in winter, rapid snow melt, that is why it is called snow eater. It reduces snowfall, it increases evaporation and improves winter comfort. About fawn, you can write that sudden rise in temperature, drop in relative humidity, it causes rapid snow melt and avalanche, and it can lead to fawn drought affecting vegetation and agriculture. Now these are the sketches which are indicating about these different systems. Okay, so this is the point here. I hope that you have got the entire idea, and this question is a direct straightforward question. So if you have some idea, you can write here. There is a diagram here which explains the concept of Chinook and fawn, right? It explains that how the moist Pacific air rises, condensation, rainfall, okay, descent, when the air is descending, how it warms, why it is called snow eater. So this diagram explains this, right? And now we are coming to the, this is the Lu. About Lu I have already discussed with you. Now we are coming to the next question, that is question number 15. And this question number 15 is saying that analyze the role of satellite based technologies in achieving climate smart agriculture, CSA and food security in India. So we have to analyze the role of satellite based technology in achieving climate smart agriculture and food security. Yani ki we have to discuss about satellite based technology in achieving climate smart agriculture and food security. So here we have to discuss both these two dimensions. We have to explain, analyze. In just analyzing means explaining the different roles of satellite based technologies. Right? Satellite based technologies, all of you in science and technology must have read about remote sensing technology, satellite technology, how it is used in Indian agriculture, climate resilience, food security. All of you have read about this. Remote sensing, earth observation satellites, GIS, precision agriculture, soil moisture, crop monitoring, okay, yield forecasting, drought irrigation, climate vulnerability, crop insurance, food security, resource set, fossil about crop. All of you have read about this. Now the need of the question is that you will have to connect everything. It means that satellite technology, agriculture information, how better decision can be taken, climate resilience, stable production, food security, you will have to connect each and everything. That is the demand of the question. Okay, so when we talk about climate smart agriculture, it means that we are talking about improving productivity. We are talking to improve adaptation or resilience to climate change. We are talking to improve resource use efficiency and wherever possible mitigation satellite based technologies. Okay, now the application. First, this question is basically related to the application part. Okay, climate based technologies, climate smart agriculture and food security, and both these concepts are related also. For example, climate smart agriculture, we will talk about crop area and production estimation. First point, crop area and production estimation. It means that with the help of satellites, with the help of satellite imagery, we can identify cultivated area, we can identify the crop condition, and it will enable advanced production forecasting. India's Fossil framework uses space, agrometeorology, and land-based observations for agriculture forecasting. We can also talk about crop health monitoring system, that multi-spectral imagery and vegetation indices can identify spatial variations in crop. It can help in detecting stress before it becomes visible at the level of the field. The third important point is soil moisture and irrigation management. It means that satellite derived soil moisture information, it can support irrigation scheduling and water management. ISRO's US-04 RISAT-1A based operational soil moisture products provide agricultural information at 500 meter species resolution. We can also talk about drought and climate risk monitoring, that satellites can monitor vegetation, stress, surface conditions, and changing moisture regimes. This supports drought assessment, contingency planning, and crop insurance decisions. We can also talk about weather and climatic information, that meteorological satellites contribute to monitoring atmospheric conditions, rainfall, and extreme weather, and ultimately this helps farmers and institutions anticipating climate related risks. We can also talk about disaster management, that satellite imagery can rapidly map floods, cyclones, and drought impacts, and allowing quicker agricultural responses. We can also talk about land and water management, that how Earth observation supports mapping of land use, land cover, degraded land, water resources, and irrigation related conditions. Okay, so these are the points that we can write. India has developed an extensive Earth observation capability. ISRO's operational remote sensing constellation has applications in agriculture, water resources, forestry, environmental, and disaster management. Resource set series, you must have read about this in Science Tech, that agriculture and land resource monitoring is done. You must have read about RISAT US-04, radar based observations useful under cloud cover. You must have read about EOS-06, earth and observation, ocean observation. You must have read about INSAT 3D 3DR, that is used for meteorological applications. You must have read about Cartosat, where high resolution cartographic spatial applications are done. You must have read about FASL, where agriculture production forecasting is done. You must have read about crop framework, crop framework, where we do what? Near real time monitoring of crop, sowing and harvesting. So a recent example, contemporary example of ISRO's 2025 wheat monitoring pilot, where optical and SAR data sets from EOS-04, EOS-06, and ResourceSat-2A were used to monitor wheat sowing and crop conditions across major wheat producing areas. So in this way, we can say that satellites can be used, okay, for climate smart agriculture. So that is the theme of this entire question which you can write. But we should also talk about limitations, that there are some limitations, because today what we see, the unequal access to digital services and advisory systems to all the people. Okay, unequal access. We can, in limitation, we can talk about small and fragmented land holdings. In limitation, we can talk about need for ground truthing. In limitation, we can talk about cloud limitations for optical imagery. In limitation, we can talk about data processing and institutional capacity. In limitation, we can talk about last mile communication for farmers. In limitation, we can also talk about satellite information must be translated into actionable farm advice. This is the point here. Now, we have to write this answer if we want to write this answer in IBC model. So in introduction, since we have to write this answer in 250 words, so in introduction we can write that climate smart agriculture CSA seeks to enhance productivity and resilience while using natural resources efficiently. Satellite based earth observation enables India to monitor crops, soil, water, and climate risk over large areas. And the role of CSA climate smart agriculture, we can write first point, crop monitoring. Multispectral imagery tracks crop area, crop condition, and crop growth, which enables timely intervention. India's fossil framework uses space, agrometeorological, and ground observations for crop forecasting. The second point, you can write about precision water management, that satellite derived soil moisture information supports irrigation scheduling and crop water management. We can talk about ISRO's US-04 based operational product, which provides high resolution soil moisture information. We can talk about climate risk management, that remote sensing helps monitor droughts, floods, and crop stress. which supports contingency planning and insurance. We can talk about resource efficiency, that's satellite-based land use, soil and water mapping facilities and efficient allocation of irrigation and agricultural resources. And contribution to food security, we will discuss that satellite-based crop area and yield estimates facilitate early production forecasts, procurement, storage, and pricing decisions. ISRO's recent crop framework demonstrate near real-time monitoring of wheat sowing and crop condition using optical SAR observation. However, benefits depend on ground validation, institutional capacity, and last mile delivery of satellite-derived advisories to smallholders. Now, conclusion, you can write that satellites can make Indian agriculture anticipatory rather than reactive, linking climate intelligence with precision resource management and integrating Earth observation with GIS, AI, weather services, and farmer extension systems can strengthen both climate resilience and long-term food security. So in this way, we can write the answer of this question. Now, I have told you that while writing answer of this question in 250 words, again we can do what? We can write a good format where we'll write introduction. In main body, we will discuss the dimensions, and with the help of keywords, we will try to write the answer of this question. And the answer has been written in the same format here. For example, again, the another format of answer that I'm discussing with you. The question is analyze the role of satellite-based technologies. So different formats will do what? When you will watch this video in different formats. So ultimately, after the end of discussion, you will find that all the topics that I'm discussing with you, you are at least 60 to 70% familiar with all these topics. So in case in future these topics are repeated in prelims and mains, so you will be in a condition to write the answer of these questions. So that's why such detailed discussions are very much important. So the question is analyze the role of satellite-based technology in achieving CSA, climate smart agriculture and food security. So one introduction, that is one part. Then we have written role in climate smart agriculture. Then in main body, this is what? Main body. This is part A and this is part B. Contribution to food security, right? And here some data, you can say multiple data, right? Some keywords have been written. Examples of applications in India has been given. Satellite farmer information flow, how the information reaches to the farmers, this have been given. Information products and services, some keywords are given. And lastly, a conclusion has been given. So in introduction, it has been written that satellite-based Earth observation provides synoptic, repetitive, and multi-temporal data on crops, soil, water, and weather. This supports precision agriculture, climate resilience, and stabilizes food production in India. Now, role in climate smart agriculture, there are 6 dimensions. First is crop monitoring and health assessment, crop area and yield estimation, soil moisture and water management. The 4th is weather and climate services. The 5th is drought, flood, and disaster monitoring, and the 6th is land use and resource mapping. Now here keywords has been written while explaining these dimensions. For example, by explaining this dimension of crop monitoring and health assessment, the keywords that has been written here is multi-spectral imagery, tracks crop growth, crop area yield estimation, written timely and accurate assessment, supports planning and market management, soil moisture and water management, SAR data. USO for Reset 1 provides soil moisture for irrigation, scheduling, and water use efficiency. Weather and climatic services, satellite support rainfall estimation, extreme weather alerts, agromet advisories, droughts, flood, disaster monitoring, early detection, impact assessment, and contingency planning. Land use and resource mapping, you will see here land use, land cover, watershed degraded, land mapping for better planning. Now contribution to food security, I have written here that reliable production forecasting, better procurement, buffer stocking, and price stabilization. Timely information reduces crop losses and improves resource use efficiency. Supports location specific advisories, higher yields and stable production. Helps target government schemes like PM Kisan Insurance, MSP operations to the right locations. Strengthens climate resilience, ensures steady availability and access to food. Now key Indian initiatives, you can write like this in examples in your answer, like Fasal, crop, Bhuvan, M Kisan portal, soil moisture, US, PMFBY, Fasal Bima Yojana. So there is no need to write the full sentences. Otherwise, you will not be able to write the complete answer, right? Here some keywords are given. Okay, so you can also prepare it. Example of application in wheat monitoring, application in soil moisture monitoring, flood assessment, drought monitoring. So when we talk about wheat monitoring, so basically this is done in particularly areas of Punjab, Haryana, UP and Madhya Pradesh. When we talk about soil moisture monitoring, so this is done mainly in areas of Rajasthan, Gujarat and Deccan Plateau. When we talk about flood assessment, so this is done basically in Ganga Basin region, Assam, coastal Odisha, coastal Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh. When we talk about drought monitoring, so in drought monitoring, parts of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Marathwada and Telangana. So we are talking about this, right? So this is the answer. Now, how satellite farmer information for this is, you don't need to write in your answer that satellite acquires data, then data reception, processing, information generation, advisory, delivery to M-Kisan, SMS, lastly farmer. So there is no need to write this. There is no need to write this part also, but in this way you can write a better answer. Don't write the full sentences. Explore each and every dimension that has been asked in the question in the format of introduction, body and conclusion, and it will be possible only when you will do practice a lot. That is the mantra that you will have to practice. For example, if you will practice these keywords, ultimately you will find some questions in your test series in your next attempt that will be based on this science, technology, agriculture and all this, right? So you will have to practice a lot. This is the way through which you can get good marks, right? Now we are coming to question number 16. That is 15 marker question, and you have to write the answer of this question in 250 words. And the question is saying that the center of global trade, is gradually shifting. This is also a keyword, gradually shifting from Atlantic region to the Indo-Pacific region. Examine this statement. We have to examine. Again, I am saying that examining means what? A balanced assessment. And you have to focus on keywords of the question when you are asked to examine. For example, gradually shifting from Atlantic region to Indo-Pacific. It means that it is not saying that in Atlantic region, the global trade has come to an end. It is saying that it is shifting from Atlantic region to the Indo-Pacific region. So obviously there will be some facts and data also in support of this statement. So we also have to write that. So basically this question demands that we should understand the changing nature of geography of global trade. We should be familiar with the maritime trade routes. We should be familiar with the global value chains, and we should also be familiar with the concept of rise of Asian economies. In your classes, all of you must have read about Indo-Pacific, Atlantic economy, maritime trade. You must have read about Regional Comprehensive Economic Plan, RCEP, ASEAN, Malacca Strait, Suez Canal, Indian Ocean, China, India, East Asia, supply chain diversification, geoeconomics. Now you need to interrelate all these concepts, identify the demand of the question and write the answer. For example, the demand in this question is what? We have to establish the historical dominance of the Atlantic. First, we will have to discuss that why there is the historical dominance of Atlantic over trade and commerce, and why today Indo-Pacific is gaining weight. This concept, explanation of this concept is very much important, and we have to provide geographical and economic evidence in support of this idea also. We have to examine whether the Atlantic is actually being displaced. Okay, and lastly, we have to reach at a conclusion. But gradually shifting word is very important. So the answer should not claim that the Atlantic has completely ceased to be the center of global trade, but rather the incremental center of gravity of trade growth, manufacturing, shipping, connectivity and supply chain is moving towards Asia. This we have to explain, right? So the global trade system today is witnessing a relative eastward shift in its center of gravity, driven by Asian production and consumption. Although the Atlantic remains a major node of finance, Atlantic remains a major node of technology, Atlantic remains a major node of services and trade, but the supplied framework, right, what we see here, that it is gradually shifting. So this we have to explain, right? So there are images which explains this process. Here you will see that this is talking about Indo-Pacific trade core. And when we talk about Indo-Pacific trade core, these are the maritime trade routes in Indo-Pacific region. So basically we are talking about East Asia, we are talking about Southeast Asia, we are talking about South Asia, we are talking about Indian Ocean connectivity. And when we talk about Atlantic Trade Core, it means that we are focusing on Western Europe, North America, transatlantic routes. And these are major maritime routes of this Atlantic core. These are major maritime routes of this Indo-Pacific trade core, right? We are familiar with Suez Canal, Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Malacca. So in answer, we can use these keywords, right? Suez. Now, what are the key drivers? So I will explain this, okay? So now we are coming to the topic that when we talk about this Atlantic region, so this Atlantic region became the traditional core of global trade because of European industrialization, because of, in history you will read about colonies. So due to this colonial network, North American industrialization, transatlantic trade, global financial centers, we see that this Atlantic, you can say, core, or this Atlantic region covering major centers like Western Europe, United States, Canada, North Atlantic shipping routes. It covers major ports like Rotterdam, Antwerp, Hamburg and New York as the major nodes of global commerce. But today what we see, emerging Indo-Pacific center. And when we say emerging Indo-Pacific center, it means that we are talking about China, India, Japan, South Korea. We are talking about ASEAN economies. We are talking about Australia. When we are talking about emerging Indo-Pacific, we are saying that these regions are becoming major manufacturing and energy economies today. So its significance comes from the interaction of what? Indo-Pacific significance comes as a result of interaction of multiple things like manufacturing, large market in Indo-Pacific, ports, important ports in Indo-Pacific, important maritime choke points in Indo-Pacific, important supply chains in Indo-Pacific, as well as investment in Indo-Pacific. Okay, so we will have to explain this in our answer. So the conceptual understanding of the keywords is very much important when we are answering such kind of questions, because unless we don't explain the keyword, so it will become very much difficult to answer this question, right? So this is the point here. Now when we look at the production, so we should look at some features like production geography. When we talk about East and Southeast Asia, right, so today they have become major manufacturing hubs. When we talk about China, India, ASEAN, so we see that today they provide huge and expanding consumer markets, right? We see the critical routes of trade and commerce include like Strait of Malacca, South China Sea, right, and Pacific and Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Strait of Hormuz, with the Suez Canal linking the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean and therefore the Atlantic economy. Port geography today in Asian ports like Shanghai, Singapore, right, Shenzhen, Busan, Hong Kong, they form the dense maritime network. And now about data, UNCTAD's UNCTAD's 2025 maritime assessment found that 7 of the world's 10 most connected countries in liner shipping were in Asia, in China, South Korea, Singapore and Malaysia, and occupying the top 4 positions. And India has also entered the top 10. This is what UNCTAD report, this is the report that says. Okay, so that is the most important point. Recently, this question also forms a part of current affair, because recently there is a WTO analysis, okay, and which talks about the changing geography. WTO analysis says that Asia contributed about 71% of total world mercantile trade growth in 2025, with China, Singapore, Chinese Taipei and Thailand among the important contributors. UNCTAD also reports that East Asian exports grew 9% over the latest 4 quarters, while intra-regional trade increased by 10%. Another striking indicator is that 63% of Asian exports in 2025 went to partners within Asia, demonstrating the strength of intra-regional trade. And supply chain restructuring, now Indo-Pacific is also benefiting from China plus one strategy. Now Indo-Pacific is benefiting from semiconductor and electronics production. Now Indo-Pacific is benefiting from ASEAN manufacturing. Now Indo-Pacific is benefiting from India's manufacturing expansion. Now Indo-Pacific is benefiting from diversification of global supply chains. Now Indo-Pacific is benefiting from RCEP related regional integration. Okay, so this is the point here. So in this way, we can just witness the changes that is taking place, that how India's geographical position is giving it an important role in the intersection of Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific. Like example is Mumbai, JNPT, Mundra, Kochi, Vizhinjam, Chennai, Visakhapatnam. So India's maritime connectivity is also improving. UNCTAD reported that India's liner shipping connectivity index increased 18% between June 2024 and June 2025, the largest increase among countries during the period, and this can be linked to India's ambition to become stronger logistics and manufacturing hub. So when we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about China, which is a manufacturing and export powerhouse. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about Japan, which is an advanced manufacturing country. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about South Korea, which is electronics and automobiles hub. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about Singapore, which is maritime and logistics hub. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about Vietnam, which is manufacturing and supply chain diversification. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about India, which is a services, manufacturing and growing consumption hub. But when we talk about Atlantic, we talk about USA, which is still as important in finance, technology and high value services. When we talk about Atlantic, we talk about Germany, France and Netherlands, which are advanced manufacturing and trade countries. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about UK, which is having advanced financial services, which when we talk about Indo-Pacific, we also talk about North America and European consumer markets. So this statement that is given in this question, okay, the statement that the center of global trade is gradually shifting from the Atlantic region to the Indo-Pacific region must not be interpreted as the disappearance of Atlantic trade, but the Indo-Pacific shift is real, right? Because Asian manufacturing dominance, because of regional supply chains, because of growing Asian consumption, because of higher intra-Asian trade, because of expansion of Asian ports and shipping networks, but Atlantic importance remains. The Atlantic retains major advantages in global finance. The Atlantic retains major advantages in advanced technology, high value services, institutional influence, large consumer markets, sophisticated logistics and transatlantic investment. And lastly, we can say that the Suez Canal connects the Indo-Pacific maritime system with Mediterranean and Atlantic, and in this way the two regions interconnected rather than mutually exclusive. So this is an important part. So it is better to describe this change as a relative eastward rebalancing of global trade rather than writing it like a replacement of the Atlantic by the Indo-Pacific. Again, I am repeating that always be cautious while writing the conclusion, that we should describe this change as a relative eastward rebalancing of global trade rather than replacement of Atlantic by the Indo-Pacific. Now, we have to write answer of this question in 250 words. So in introduction, body, conclusion format, we can write in introduction that Atlantic region historically dominated global trade through European industrialization, colonial networks and the rise of North America. However, the rapid growth of East and South Asia is producing a gradual eastward shift in geography of global trade. Now, drivers of shift, we will talk about this. Manufacturing center like China, Japan, South Korea and ASEAN have become major nodes of global value chains in electronics, machinery and consumer goods. Then we will talk about growing markets. China, India and Southeast Asia provide large and expanding consumer markets. Then we will talk about intra-regional integration, like Asian production network and regional trade have strengthened. We can also write a data that in 2025, about 63% of Asian exports were directed to partners within Asia. Now we can write another dimension of maritime connectivity, that major ports such as Shanghai, Singapore and Busan form a dense network linked to the South China Sea, Malacca Strait and Indian Ocean. And 7 of the world's 10 most connected countries in liner shipping were in Asia in 2025. We can write the data of trade growth, like WTO estimates how Asia contributed around 71% of world merchandise trade growth in 2025. But this shift is not absolute. The Atlantic retains major advantages in finance, technology, high value services, investment and sophisticated consumer markets. Moreover, the Suez Canal physically links Asian and Atlantic trade systems. And lastly, we will conclude that global trade today is experiencing relative eastward rebalancing rather than abrupt replacement of the Atlantic. And the emerging Indo-Pacific core reflects the growing weight of Asian production, consumption, and maritime connectivity, and making it increasingly central to 21st century geography of global trade. This is the answer. But there is another format where you can use keywords and write the answer of this question. For example, this is a question: the center of global trade is gradually shifting from Atlantic to Indo-Pacific. So you will draw a simple sketch explaining earlier global trade that was shifted to the core Atlantic region. Major trade links: Western Europe, a strong institutional, financial, technological dominance of Atlantic powers like US and European Union. Now, drivers of shift, you can write some points like rise of Asian manufacturing powerhouses like China, Japan, South Korea, ASEAN and India. Growth of intra-Asian trade and regional value chains. Third point, you can write about large consumer markets in Asia, population and income. Fourth point, you can write improved maritime infrastructure like ports, logistics and connectivity. The next point, you can write the technological advances and digital trade facilitation. These are the major drivers of change, right? Emerging global trade core to Indo-Pacific region. This is Indo-Pacific region. Major ports, major trade links are East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Indian Ocean, Africa and Europe. Okay, and a strong intra-regional trade, RCEP, IPF, right? Why Atlantic Ocean was dominant earlier? Due to industrial revolution in Europe and North America, due to colonial trade networks, due to strong financial institutions, right? Suez, strategic maritime choke points, you can write, mention references of Suez Canal, Strait of Hormuz and Strait of Malacca. Why Indo-Pacific core is emerging today? Due to Asia's economic rise, China's manufacturing dominance, growing markets and middle class, better connectivity. This is the most simple points, but this is the excellent answer. Okay, writing a general answer is the excellent approach of tackling the question. Okay, in my opinion, and you can also talk about implications. Don't write the full sentences. So here you can write that shift in global trade gravity towards Asia, greater economic integration, Indo-Pacific countries, enhanced resilience through diversified trade routes, better access to market supports and food security and development, need for sustainable maritime practices and regional cooperation. And lastly, you will discuss the conclusion that I have already discussed with you, right? So I hope that you have also got the idea that how to write the answer of this question. Now this sketch also shows that Asian manufacturing house, global value chains is increasing, large growing consumer markets in these countries, intra-Asian trade and major ports, maritime connectivity. The same concept has been explained here also. Now we are coming to the 17th question. That is the last question today in this discussion. And the question is, analyze the major drivers of human-induced land use changes. Human-induced land use changes in India and their geographical consequences. So here we have to talk about major drivers of human-induced land use changes in India and geographical consequences, right? So first we should understand that what is human-induced land use changes. We will have to explain human-induced land use change. Then we will also explain what are the drivers of human-induced land use change. And then we will discuss the geographical consequences. The question is asking the directive keyword like analyze. It means that first we will have to identify that what are the main drivers of land use changes, and then we have to explain the geographical process, right? Human induced land use change, land use and land cover changes, right? So in our GS classes we already have read about processes like urbanization, agriculture expansion, agriculture intensification. You already have read about infrastructure, you have read about industrialization, you have read about mining, you have read about deforestation, you have read about land fragmentation, you have read about wetland conversion, you have read about habitat fragmentation, you have read about soil degradation, you have read about hydrological alteration, you have read about carbon cycle. Now here the demand of the question is we have to identify what are the major drivers for human induced land use changes. We have to explain how they transform land use. We have to explain and analyze the geographical consequences. We should also write examples here. Okay. So this is the most important point, that we should know the distinction between direct land conversion and indirect ecological consequences of this. Okay. So basically this understanding is very much important, right? Today what we see that India's land use pattern is reshaped by growing population, by economic and infrastructure pressure, India's land use pattern is producing a complex geography of urban expansion. India's land use pattern is also undergoing agricultural transformation, resource extraction, ecological fragmentation, and environmental stress. And we need to understand this. Okay. So, what is land use? So, land use basically means the way we human beings utilize land. For example, we utilize land for cropping, we utilize land for our settlements and habitations, we utilize land for industry, we utilize land for forestry, we utilize land for infrastructure. When we talk about land cover, it means that the physical, it refers to the physical surface characteristics of land, right? So, human induced land changes occurs when economic and demographic forces alter the relationship between population, resources, and space. So, we have to focus on population, economic growth, use of technology, policy of the government, changing demand for the government, how this conversion is being done, intensification, fragmentation of land, hydrological, ecological, climatic, and socio-economic consequences, right? This we will have to focus. Now, India's LULC pattern is strongly dominated by agricultural land, we all know. ISRO's latest data assessment for 2023-24 says that about 1793.24 lakh hectares of cropland and 112.27 lakh hectares of built-up area. The assessment uses satellite data and includes Kharif, Rabi, and Zaid crop zone areas. And it also maintains, okay, that how change in land use is done. So it is measured with the help of satellite data. Okay. So this is the point here. So these are some data, some information with the help we have to write answer of this question. Now, what we will write in the answer of this question. So we'll follow IBC model, introduction, body, and conclusion model. In introduction, we can write that human induced land use change refers to the transformation of land through agriculture, urbanization, infrastructure, industry, and resource extraction. And in India, demographic and economic pressures are increasingly reshaping natural and agricultural landscapes. What are the major drivers? Major drivers, one is urbanization, right? Expansion of Delhi NCR, Bengaluru, Hyderabad. It converts agricultural land into built-up area, causing habitat fragmentation, increased runoff, and urban heat island effects, right? Agricultural expansion and intensification of agriculture. Today we see what conversion of natural vegetation and intensive irrigation, cropping alters soil quality, groundwater regimes, and biodiversity, particularly in the Indo-Gangetic plain. Third point driver here is infrastructure development. We see roads, railways, dams, hydropower projects fragment Himalayan and forest landscapes, alter drainage, and increase slope instability risks. Mining and industrialization, that is the next driver. That mineral belts of Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh experience conversion of forest or agricultural land into mining and industrial landscapes, producing habitat fragmentation, soil degradation, and pollution. The next driver is coastal development. Urban industrial expansion around Mumbai, Kerala, and Odisha can transform wetlands and coastal ecosystems, reducing natural flood buffers. And these changes can generate what? Vegetation loss. As a result, soil degradation. As a result, altered hydrology. As a result, reduced ecosystem resilience. Okay. However, restoration, agroforestry, and planned urban development can reverse some of the impacts. And lastly, we can conclude that India's challenge is not to prevent all land use change, but the main challenge is to ensure a spatially planned, ecologically compatible, and socially inclusive transformation guided by remote sensing, land use, zoning, and landscape level planning. So in this way, you can write the answer, but the best way to write the answer is not writing the full sentences, giving some hints and indications using keywords and writing all the dimensions in this question. For example, this question is analyze the major drivers of human induced land use changes in India and their geographical consequences, right? So major drivers of human induced land use change. So the first driver is population growth and urbanization. Second, agriculture expansion and intensification. Third driver is infrastructure development. Fourth is mining and industrialization. Fifth driver is other drivers. In first driver, population growth and urbanization, it has been written rapid urban expansion, housing, commercial and urban growth, growth of towns and mega cities. Agriculture expansion and intensification, the points are, again, these are not full sentences, these are keywords. Expansion into forests, wetlands, multiple cropping, high impact use, irrigation expense. Again, in infrastructure development, we are not writing full sentences, we are writing keywords, and in this way you can fetch excellent marks. Roads, highways, railways, dams, canals, ports, airports, power transmission, and urban infrastructure. Mining and industrialization, we are writing mining of coal, iron ore, bauxite, limestone, industrial estimates, SEZ, thermal power, associated infrastructure and settlement. Next driver is other driver, for example, deforestation. Okay, tourism and recreational infrastructure, policy changes, land acquisition, markets. Now, process or patterns of land use change. What is the process? What is the pattern? Okay, so there are 3 points here: land conversion, land intensification, and land fragmentation. Land conversion means change from one land use to another. For example, from forest to agricultural land, urban, mining, industrial, wetland, agriculture, urban, aquaculture, how land use change. Land intensification means increased use intensity on same land. It means that more cropping, irrigation, use of more fertilizers, result higher yields. Land fragmentation means division of large continuous land into smaller patches of land, and this breaks the ecological sensitivity. This is the point. Now, what is the special pattern in India? You will see here: infrastructure and hydropower in Himalayas region, right? In Indo-Gangetic Plain region, what do we see today? Due to this growing population pressure, we see agricultural intensification. In regions like Odisha, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, we see what? Mining and industrial transformation. You can give examples like this. In regions like Delhi, NCR, Mumbai, Bengaluru and Hyderabad, we see urban expansion. In regions like Mumbai, Kerala and Odisha, we see coastal and wetland conversion, right? Now, what are the geographical consequences? The geographical consequences are forest loss and habitat degradation, right? Wetland loss, soil degradation, declining fertility, hydrological alterations, biodiversity loss, urban heat island and population, disaster vulnerability increase, right? And what is the way forward suggestion? So we should promote sustainable land use planning and zoning, protect and restore forest, wetlands and grasslands. In this way, it has been explained, right? Climate smart agriculture, soil conversion, compact and inclusive urban planning, strong governance, data monitoring, community participation. Through this, we can just make the situations better. Okay, this map shows special patterns like urban expansion, right? Agriculture intensification in Indo-Gangetic plains, Odisha, Jharkhand region. Already this image has been explained. Infrastructure and hydropower development in Himalayan region, coastal and wetland conversion in these regions, right? So this image also explains major spatial patterns. Now, all the questions we have discussed today. Now, what is the conclusion of these discussions? Looking at these 8 questions that have been asked in GS paper 1 from Indian Geography module, we reach at a conclusion that now the evolving trend of UPSC is that it is evolving from factual to conceptual. It means that UPSC is moving beyond definitions given in geography. It is moving towards mechanism and processes, like we discussed Fujiwara concept, Fujiwara effect and Aeolian processes. This is what? Mechanism and process, not only definition. Plus what we see looking at these geography questions, that there is a good integration of static concepts along with the current affairs. For example, the issues like climate change, food security, technology and global trade all have been included in geography question, right? It means that questions in geography now have good interlinkages and connections with economy, with environment, with agriculture, with technology and geopolitics. Satellite technology, science tech is also included, economy is also included, environment is also included along with the geography questions. And now the UPSC is focusing on spatial thinking like location, like regional variation, networks, resource flows, right? This has become crucial. And application based question, all these questions are application based questions. It means that now you will have to apply what the concepts which you are reading in your books, the concept which you are reading in your coaching material. Now you have to apply those concepts to real world geographical problems. It means that you don't need to just read the notes, remember the definitions, but you will have to reproduce the material which you read in coaching booklet or textbook. in a application based manner, right? You have to apply that knowledge to the real world geographical problems, okay? And you must focus on directive keywords, like when the question asks about analyze, examine, compare, so you must look at these questions. For example, there was a question, Lu, Chinook and fawn question, so there you have to do a systematic comparison, okay? So you have to do a systematic comparison, but you don't have to write a 3 separate description. It means that that was a comparison, that comparison was very much interlinked. This is the most important point, right? And focus on, for example, the question consequences approach. This approach is being followed in many of the questions, like what were the drivers, what was the process, how this transformation is being done, what were the consequences. Such kind of questions, the number of such kind of questions is increasing. So you will have to read current affairs when along with your geography module. You will have to it means that whenever you are reading, preparing themes, so always prepare the themes in an interconnected manner, like using the identifying the themes, okay, and connecting it, like connecting one theme with climate, agriculture, technology, environment, economy, whatever the dimensions that you can interlink, you should try to interlink all those dimensions, right? So today you need to understand the concept. Yes, it's true, you need to understand the concept. You need to read your textbook, NCERT books or coaching materials. Yes, you need to do that. But the most important thing is that whatever you are reading, you will have to apply in a practical manner. You will have to relate it with the contemporary issues, and you will have to analyze the consequences and all this. So the demand of this question paper is very practical, okay? So those students who will follow a discussion based model, for example, previously when I used to discuss the answer of the question, I used to write each and every point on the smart board, blackboard, whiteboard, whatever you can say, but today that model is not feasible because UPSC always evolves. Now such kind of classes are needed where the teacher delivers open lectures, okay? Open lectures, when you will listen to open lectures, when you will just discuss different dimensions with the teacher, ultimately your thought process will evolve and you will be able to apply the knowledge which you are getting from the textbook to the real world problems and the questions that are asked in examination. So again, looking at the nature of the questions, I think that the need for the classroom teachings, the pattern of the classroom teachings must be changed. It should be the open discussion. It should not be like we are writing points on the blackboard. No, previously for the last 3-4 years it was good, but now these things should evolve, okay? So I hope that by today's session, okay, definitely this today's session is going to be of some help for you, okay? And see you in the next session with GS paper 2. Now we have already completed GS paper 1, history questions, Indian society, and today geography questions. I have completely discussed. Now I will enter into GS paper 2, okay? So see you in GS paper 2, okay? Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for joining the session.